get started. I think we still have like 2 minutes.
It's really helpful, you guys, if you have something to write with.
Yes.
Because what you'll know, or what you've probably experienced from any classes or workshops or anything that you've done, is that we get all fired up and we leave and think we're going to do all of these great things to start implementing into our life. And then, of course, our brain has so many things to store that it's hard to remember afterwards. And we think we will, and then afterwards we're like, oh, great, what was that? So really having something to write with, and then teaching somebody else something that you've learned as soon as you learn something is the best way to really make it stick into your own mind. So go share if you learn whatever you learned today, go share that with somebody.
Hi, you guys.
That will help make it part of your life.
Yay. So hi, you guys. Welcome. I know some of you are here on Zoom. Some of you are live on Facebook. So we just want to say hello, say good morning. We're excited to sit with you. And I'd love to first introduce myself. I'm Nikki, for anybody who is new to these Friday talks. And I'm honored and excited to introduce to you my sister, Steph. So this is Coach Steph. She is really been one for sure, my mental coach, but she is a mental health coach for so many of us. I know that so many of us have really just learned so much from you in the aspect of not just physical and nutrition, but ways to get our mind right and ways to let go of negativity. So today, when we talk about detoxing our mind and detoxing that negativity, we're going to talk about reframing, rewiring, and redesigning our thoughts. So without any further ado, I would love to introduce to you my sister, Coach Steph. Welcome, Steph.
Thank you. Yay. I'm super excited to do this. So when Nikki and I were first talking about doing this, she brought it up and we were just talking about planning it. And I said, if I can't teach this in my sleep, I don't know what I've been doing for the last 20 years of my life. So, they say we teach what we need to work on, right? So this is something for myself that I had a pattern of negative thinking from a lot of childhood trauma. And I think it became just like a pattern of the way that I was letting my mind run my life. And so I started at a really young age out of, and we'll talk about this at the end, kind of what taking the struggles in your life as a blessing, but really my own pain and suffering drove me to find this road of how to redesign my life and my mind so that I could change that. And I did it out of desperation, and then I kept on that road because I could feel the changes happening in myself. And journaling really helped me with that. So that's one thing we talked about at the very beginning. If you weren't on yet, have your journal out so you can take notes, but also journaling every day, because if you have children, or if you know children, you see how it's really hard to see them grow when you're right in front of them. So for your own journey, it's really hard to see your own growth. And now even I look at myself and sometimes think about geez, I should be floating on clouds and enlightened by now. But it's because I haven't seen the change in myself because I've inside of me, right? But when I look back at journal, I actually ended up getting rid of some of my journals from when I was younger because I was embarrassed by the negativity that I was putting down, and that's not me anymore. So this works. I can say for myself, and I know from all the teachers that I've learned from, that it really does work, but it's a practice. And so it's something you have to work at all the time to overcome the current thought patterns that you have right now. So detoxing from negativity, we're going to start with our physical environment. First, we're going to do physical environment. We're going to do reframing our internal environment, and then we're going to do rewiring our mind. So the external environment is really simple, and it's the same with our nutrition, it's the same with our fitness. But with negativity in our life, they say we become like the people we spend the most time with, like those 5 people. If you look at the 5 people you spend the most time with, people can pretty much predict who you are, how you respond to things, because you become like those people.
Even like your weight.
Yeah, so that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's a lot of weight studies that, if they just implant one person that's either really extreme on one weight spectrum or the other, everybody in the group will change. So we don't realize how much we absorb from our environment and the people around us. And we'll talk about some of those people we can't change, obviously, if it's somebody that's like an intimate part of your family. But the people we can choose to distance ourselves from in a loving manner, and surround ourselves with people who make us feel great and who bring us up and who tell us that we can do it, and who look at the world in a way that we want to look at the world. And then next is our news and our social media. And I know we've had a lot of discussion around that with this last year with the pandemic. Noticing how you feel when you're absorbed in the news, when you're absorbed in social media. And a big part of this, we're going to be talking about all of these things today, is that awareness and being present in noticing, do I feel better after I do this? And is it going to help? Is it going to help me to be absorbed in 2 hours of news? Am I going to make an impact? Am I going to make a change? Or is it just changing my internal environment and my stress hormones and the way I'm going to come off of that and present in the world? So that external environment, what we expose ourselves to, the news, the social media, what books we're reading, what we're putting in eventually comes out, becomes who we are inside, and becomes what comes out. So it's really, really important we filter that.
And maybe just start with, like, if you are used to social media first thing in the morning or used to news first thing in the morning, just don't do it at your bookends. So Steph talks a lot about our bookends of our day. And so in the morning is precious time. And before you go to sleep, you're like saying, what am I going to dream about tonight? What am I going to think about? How is my mind going to let go and detox the day? And if you have your book ends with some type of negativity, and I really feel like that's a big issue with our teens today, because we're seeing a lot of depression, anxiety, suicide, and because they're not connected to outdoor playing with kids a lot now, they're very connected to each other on social media, and that can be really, really hard on not just us, but our kiddos.
And you don't realize that we watched the movie one night right before bed, which I don't normally do, but I had a dream the whole night that there was like this team of people trying to kill me.
Yeah.
And you don't realize, maybe you don't remember, but those things go on in your subconscious. Is that what we want to be processing while we're sleeping?
Angela,
it's not.
Clean it up, girl.
Horror books. And then, so not only thinking about the negative things that are going in, but how we can put positive things in. So we take out social media and the news, we take out the negative people in our life, but what is it that makes you connect to the good in your life? And what is it that the positive things for you? And that's different for everybody, but for me, it's nature. For me, it's being around the people that I really enjoy and that I love. It's requiring myself to do self-care, which is a struggle when you're a busy person, like most of us are. But those things, like making a list, and we do that with our Kaya girls, is like make a list of 10 things that feed your soul that aren't related to food.
Okay, so let's put that as our to-dos.
That's a good homework.
Okay.
List 10 things, and then when you're starting to feel like, we'll talk about at the end, when we do struggle in these times, we have that list already handy, because when you're in the middle of a low, even being able to imagine feeling good and what's going to make us feel good is a struggle. So having that list handy is really wonderful.
And maybe just take a second and type in like one thing that feeds your soul. And as Steph is continuing, we can all just share just one thing, because it gives us ideas.
The big thing for me is looking at the ocean. If you live by the ocean, or at night,
and the trees,
just looking up at the stars and realizing how tiny we are.
The moon.
Imagining like lions right now, or elephants, and just seeing that we're all just part of this bigger picture, and we get so stuck in our little perspective. So that's the next thing we're going to talk about, is our perspective and reframing. And so the things that we are stuck with, let's say like maybe we have a negative coworker and we're not at a spot where we want to change our career, or you're just stuck with that negative person. It's a reframing of the negativity in your life. So we talk about this a lot with Kaya too, but welcoming the hard things. And it's easy to say, it's tough to do. It's something that we have to keep reminding ourselves over and over and over. If we were to show up to a workout class and it was so easy that our heart rate didn't come up, we didn't sweat, and we left, we probably would never come back. We'd feel like it was a wasted time. We should feel the same way about our life. If our life is easy breezy and we just go along with no push and no shove and no struggle, it's a waste of a life, right? Our struggle is what makes us connect with one another. It's what makes us a rock when other people need us. It's what makes us feel a sense of accomplishment. And when we get to the end of our life, seeing that we've overcome all these things and not that there was something wrong with our life because of all the trauma that we've had. And I wish we could use a new word for trauma that would also connect with that, but it gives us a sense that there's something wrong with that. And of course, all of the things that happen in our life are maybe we wish were different, but we need to think about it as like, that's part of who I am. One of my favorite teachers, Wayne Dyer, says like, maybe before thinking about your life, like before you came, and like this life, I wanted to, going into this life, I want to be able to teach independence. It was his thing. And so he said, okay, so he had this conversation with God, and that can be with whatever higher being you believe in, or but he just said, like, okay, are you sure you want to be independent and you want to teach independence? And he said, yeah, I'm positive. And he's like, okay, we're going to throw your little butt in a foster home, and you're going to have no parents, and you're going to have, and so that was his life. And he became who he was because of that. And so instead of saying, poor me, I was raised in a foster home and I didn't have parents, he's like, that was my journey to becoming the person that I am today. And so thinking about that every time something like that happens to us, or whatever we're struggling with, that's our mental burpees. And that's why we're here. We're here for the hard stuff. And every single thing that happens in our life isn't an accident, and it's not a, I've heard it called the fundamental ambiguity of being human. And I like this because it kind of pushes my mind into something that's like, what is that? But that everything's always changing. Everything's always going, we're always going to have some sort of struggle. And for me, it's helped me to think about, like, I'll take the problems I have now, because I know there are worse problems. And I know as soon as these ones are resolved, I'm going to get another one. Right? Because that's life. And this feeling that we have that we always are trying to get through the problem so that my life can be easy is where our suffering is. There's pain is inevitable in life, but we suffer because we wish things were different than the way that they naturally are. So letting go of the idea that life is supposed to be simple, it's supposed to be easy, and those hard things, really welcoming them as a gift that are going to strengthen the person that you are. So that's that reframing part. Now, the rewiring part of this is that you're going to try to do these things, and you're going to see that it's not going to be easy. And maybe you won't be able to make any progress for a while with either one of these things. Your external environment, you're like, why do I keep going? Why am I drawn again to social media? I told myself I wasn't going to do that. Why am I watching the news again? I know this doesn't help me feel better. Why am I eating poorly again when I promised myself I was going to treat myself better? Why am I back in this space again? Or the reframing. Again, I'm ungrateful for my life. Why am I here again? And you're going to see that unless you rewire the way that you think, you're always going to be pushing against those things in your life. And what that takes is a very slow, a very boring process, something that almost feels meaningless when you do it, but science shows that it actually works. And this helps for me because it does feel like those small changes we were talking about, meditation, sitting down, and this is not a dogmatic word at all, it's just retraining your mind to think about what you want to think about, to go with what your heart wants, with what your soul wants, with what your big goals are, instead of falling back into those ruts. I think about it too, like, like a deer walking over a certain path. There's just a track, and your brain wants to go to the track. It's hard to bushwhack over into somewhere else, right? Your brain is just like, here's the track I've been on since I was 8 years old, complaining about my life. Or here's the track that I've been on since whatever happened to me as a teenager. And your brain will naturally pull you to that easy road. You've got to bushwhack away to a new way of thinking. And that's hard. And it's not going to be comfortable, and it's not going to be easy. And when you sit down to meditate, if you sit down to meditate and you say, wow, I'm good at that, nonsense. I've never met somebody that said that. Every single person I've ever talked to, a beginning meditator, says, I'm not good at it. I can't do it. I don't do it because I sit down and it's just too hard for me. That is everyone's experience. Why? Because we are all used to that path. bushwhacking, you're going to cut your legs up. It's not going to feel good. You're going to all of a sudden sit and realize how wild your mind is, how it's going to keep pulling you that way. You're going to feel that inner resistance, and your brain's going to go, should I leave the stove on? I better go. I can't be sitting here. My kid needs me, or there's so many other things I should be doing right now. And it's going to try to pull you back on the path that you've been on your whole life. So start small and know that brain scans, actual brain scans, show that you change your brain. Like your brain will actually look different on a scan after meditating. And regular meditators, brains look completely different from people who don't. So the part of your brain that fires, the fight or flight part of your brain, will start shrinking, and the neurons will fire less. And you can see that on a scan of people who meditate. And the part of us that's calm, that brings our heart rate down, that brings our stress hormones down, starts to increase. And we have a different brain. So we can make a new brain for ourselves, actually physically and scientifically proven, if we do this.
Okay, walk us through doing that.
A meditation?
Yeah, well, yeah, walk us through, like, what, like, is it 20 minutes? Is it 5 minutes? Is
I
it
would
like,
start super small.
just walk us through like what that looks like.
Okay, so with any habit, start so small that you can't fail. They say start with a habit that's so small that you could do it even on your worst day, on a day where the worst thing imaginable when your life happens. You still brush your teeth. He talks about that a lot. You still brush your teeth, even if everyone in your family, some tragic accident, you still brush your teeth. But instead of that, maybe it's like, okay, in addition to that, like, let's start with maybe like, I can do the same amount I brush my teeth in the morning. I can do 2 minutes. And I know even on my worst day, even on my busiest day, I can do 2 minutes. So 2 minutes, and place it somewhere so it's tied to something you do every day. Let's say it's when I turn out of my bed in the morning and I put my feet on the ground. That's my meditation time. Or maybe you boil water in the morning for your tea. That's my meditation time. So pick a time, something you already do, tie it to that. And then all you're going to do, it's so simple. And there's like TM or transcendental meditation. There's all these, there's Vipassana, which is the one that I learned. It doesn't matter which one you do. All we're going to do first is to, one, it helps me to close my eyes. You can do that if you want to or not, but just go ahead and do that now. So if you can, you don't have to close your eyes, but you can just even come to like a still staring position. And they say to sit up. So sit up with dignity. So you roll your shoulders back and down, and that's just so you don't get tired. It kind of keeps your body in an awake position. And then just start noticing the sound of your breath or the feeling of your breath. And that's all you're going to do. It's just see where you feel or hear your breath the most pronounced for you. Maybe it's the rise and fall of your chest or belly. Maybe it's like the oceanic sound coming in and out of your nose. Maybe it's the sensation of the cool air coming in and out. Where is it for you? Just a few breaths. Now, already notice you probably thought of something besides your breath, and then just bring it back to your breath again. Bring it back to your breath again. Maybe you get 2 breaths before you have another thought. Maybe it's 1. Every time you notice your brain starting to wander back on that trail, back on that path of thinking, we just bring it back to a place it's never been before, this still place. That's it. That's it. That's all we do. And it feels, and we do that over and over and over. And what you'll notice is, let's say you do this for 2 minutes, and maybe you lose the track, your mind tracking your breath 50 times in that 2 minutes. But that's 50 times you noticed. And every time you pick yourself up, I picture it like picking my little mind up and putting it back on the right track. Picking it up and putting it back on the right track. And every time I do that, I'm making my new path stronger. That's not a failure. So a mistake that we make, and I do this to myself sometimes because I want to get it so badly. But every time you do that, you don't say, oh, I did it again, I failed. Every time you realize it, you say, I realized it again. Because maybe your first breath, you lose track and you start thinking and you think the entire 2 minutes. And at the end, you realize you did it. You did one mental burpee because you realized one time in the 2 minutes to bring yourself back to that path. And then maybe the next time you'll notice 2 times in the 2 minutes that you were lost in thought. And that's 2 mental burpees. But that every time we do it, every time we notice, we're making our brain a new way to think, a new way to live. And that's the practice of this. That's how we do all the things we're going to talk about. That's how we do all the things we talk about with Kaya, all the things that Nikki teaches, all the things that we really want for ourselves and that we feel like we're sabotaging. It's just that we're walking the same worn path. So the meditation practice is so important. I can't even overemphasize that.
So, okay, so reframing was the first thing that you went over. So the first
redesigning. So the first thing is
redesigning.
like
Okay.
Your external environment.
Okay, so we're redesigning so we can see like, okay, I tend to like lose my mind about 2 p.m. and go down this like negative whatever, or I have these negative thoughts. Like, so we have to first choose what thoughts we want, correct? Or
So
like, how does that design look like?
So the redesigning, what I was talking about today is our physical environment. So that's just creating like the things like if it was our nutrition, it would be like not putting bad food into our fridge or food that we don't want to eat, not eating processed food in the kitchen. So environment is like the physical things, like the people we surround ourselves with, how we choose to spend our time, what media or information we decide to put into our mind. So that's that first piece is the physical part of our world. And then the reframing is, okay, so here we are, here's the life we've created for ourselves, and what perspective are we going to have on our life? So that perspective of my life should be anything different than it is. I'm anywhere different than I should be. Or like for me, I think about like the struggle I have with my teenager and wishing he was somewhere that he's not. Like I don't want to wish an easy life for him either, right? So that maybe it's a pain you feel for someone else, but don't wish their struggle away either. Just like we shouldn't wish our own away. So that's that reframing piece. And if we think about that, like our mental burpees, I think that's helpful. And also think about the way life is supposed to be is always changing and always something hard. And then that rewiring piece is the practice. And it's a practice. It's not something we ever will conquer. It's not something you're going to do in 2 weeks and be like, wow, I changed. It's something for however many years you're alive, that's how much you've been practicing the other way of thinking. So for me, if I've been doing this for 45 years and I expect myself in 4 years or 5 years to have my brain completely different, that's an expectation, again, wishing things that are a way that they're not. But I know that the path is the practice of reframing my mind.
So in the meditation, our job is to train our focus mind, right? So in meditation, why this is rewiring our mind is what? Is why? Why is meditation the thing that's helping us rewire?
Because it's teaching our mind to realize that I've been listening to a lot of information on internal family systems, and that's something I'd like to get into with you guys in maybe next Facebook Live or so. But realizing that what we are, enlightenment is a moment. We're all enlightened in a moment, right? It's holding on to that, but it's like realizing that everything that we're thinking and all the chatter and all of the noise in our life isn't who we are. We are that still small space. We are that underneath. We are the quiet path. And everything else is noise and chatter and a story. And so the more we can bring our brain and our mind and our focus back to that still place inside of ourselves, that's when we realize that all of it is just not the real us. And so one meditation helps us to think about what we want to think about. So when we're talking about reframing, if you're upset and you're in the middle of a fight with someone, or you're in the middle of something really dramatic that's happening in your life, if you don't have practice with thinking about what you want to think about, you're not, right? So you're upset with somebody, you're just firing and you're thinking about how upset you are with them and all of the things that they've done wrong and how you would have done it a different way. But if you're practiced in that calm, touching in with your real self, then even in those heated moments, you can choose to see that side. But that only comes with the practice of being able to. Taming, I feel like, sounds really aggressive, but if you think about it, like in meditation, they'll talk about like a wild elephant. It's like taming a wild elephant, but instead of taming like with the chain or something you'd envision, it's this way, sweetheart, because the chaining is negativity in itself, but it's this way, sweetheart. Again, you're back on that used track of negativity. This way, love. This is the way we want to go. This is the life we want. It's not in that painful doing things the way that we've always done them. A new way of looking at ourselves, of treating ourselves, of designing our life through the way we speak to ourselves. So all of that comes with the meditation is the taming, or for lack of a better word, the taming of our wild mind, of our toxic mind.
Love that. Thank you.
And then I just want to say at the end of this is like when things fall apart is, if you've heard me talk about that, if you haven't read that book, I would encourage you to read it. The listening version is not read by the author, so I would encourage you just to read the book if you can. It's called When Things Fall Apart. It's by Pema Chodron, and it's all of this. It's this exact thing is like when things fall apart, and they will. Mm-hmm. This all sounds all great and wonderful. You're going to go out and realize it doesn't look like this. It's messy, and things are going to explode and blow up. And then what?
Right. Each one of us die. Like that's something that's inevitable. It's like, that's the one thing. It's like, we're going to, because we're very close, all of us, we're going to experience that grief, and like understanding and knowing that we can't just wait for life to get good. We have to make it great right where we sit, and sit in what we're given without like make you crazy.
So when it gets really, really bad, I think really doing these three things helps me. Mm-hmm. So I just want to go through that really quick is like when things fall apart, what do? What we have a tendency to do is stop working out, start eating bad, start drinking alcohol, start watching TV because we're treating ourselves because we're in this bad place.
Or we're like, get that out of my head because we don't have the tools to get it out.
Right. So this physical part is so, when things hit the fan, this physical part is so important. I don't feel like exercising. I have to exercise. That's me. I have to exercise to be a happy person. I have to eat right. I have to, and I've noticed it. And the more you notice, that's another thing that meditation does. It brings a lot of presence and awareness into your day-to-day life. You'll start noticing, I ate that, I feel bad, and you get that connection with in and out a lot more clearly. So the physical part, when things fall apart, is super important, obviously. And then that reframing part, again, going back to that, this is my test, this is my hard, this is my burpee, and I'm here for it. And then the last part of that, when things fall apart, and I've been struggling with my teenager who struggles with depression, and I had struggled with depression for a very long time, is that sometimes the noise in my head was so strong that I felt powerless against it. And then what I do is replace. So I'll do a guided meditation. When you're just on fire and emotional or hurt or whatever it is, and you try to sit down and meditate, I can almost guarantee that's not going to work. Meditation is for practicing when things are smooth and okay and going okay, and that's the practice. But when things get really hard for me, I'll do a guided meditation. So like my brain is wild and it's too much, I'll do something that's going to talk me through. There's so many guided meditations.
Yeah, like
we can post some of that stuff.
Yeah, the Insight app is one. Deepak and Oprah do an awesome, like 2 times a year free guided meditations
And
for
it's a good
21
place to
days.
start with meditation. If you feel like when you sit down, it does feel too crazy for you, guided meditation is like the training wheels. I think it's really helpful. But then also I will play positive books. So I have the Audible app, and I will find a book on something positive and just play it nonstop. So sometimes we're going to struggle, right? Maybe we just have a day where just, it could be hormonal, it could be sleep, it could be just something we're going through. And that day, I will have my headphones in and be listening to positive books and not let my mind even start the conversation. Like, I feel terrible. Why do I? No, play. Today, I'm not even going to attempt to do this. Today, I'm going to have somebody that I aspire to be more like, be the voice in my head all day today, and see if I'm better tomorrow. So those are just some things that I do when like the struggle gets really difficult for me, and hopefully that will help you guys. So just remembering that this is like small changes over time. And like I was talking about, the journaling really helps to see your progress. If you don't see progress, it's hard to stick with it, right? Same thing like exercise. Like, it takes so long for us to see progress that most people quit. But remembering that most people quit right before you do see results, and knowing that science shows it's going to help us and it is going to change us. And journaling will help you see your change over time. It'll also help you get some clarity. So today, just think about some things that you can do to redesign your environment. Write down maybe something that a quote or something that you can refer to. I did on my phone for a long time. I put a quote that would help me to reframe on my home screen. So just something that might inspire you to reframe your environment, something about gratitude. I would like to post that video. Nikki sent me a video about gratitude. I must have been like towards the beginning of Kaya, and I replay it anytime I'm really
I love that too. Yeah.
So that's something
You
like
can post
maybe some trigger things will help you to reframe, and then just implementing a meditation practice. And that can be even 30 seconds a day is more than you did yesterday, and is a step in getting that to be part of your life.
Great.
Do you guys have any questions? Is there anybody that I want to post, so I want to help you guys by posting some of the books that help me, that When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron is one of the most helpful things in my life. My mom gave me that book actually as like a teenager, maybe it was like in my 20s, and I have regifted that book more than any other book. I don't have it right now because I keep giving it away. But every time things get hard, I just pick that book back up. I have it on my phone also as in my Kindle app.
Deb's usually great about putting the link in Facebook. Yeah, so because if you're joining us on Facebook, if everybody doesn't mind, you might just type in just really quick where you're calling in from, just saying kind of hi, so we know where everybody is. And then of course, if you have any questions
or any tools that have helped you,
Yeah.
with any of these things, we all learn from each other.
books that you love.
And then that Insight meditation app. There are lots of great meditation apps. That's just a free one that I use, and has all different topics of maybe just different things that you might be struggling with, and different times, that whatever time you have allotted, it's really helpful to do that. So you guys, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks, everyone. Great to see everyone. It was awesome to connect. Flipping all the way through. Hi, you guys. Okay, so today, thank you, Nat. So today, maybe just take a little bit of time and just bring awareness. Like, what are you thinking about through the day? And can we just gently redesign, reframe, and rewire, right? The three: redesign, reframe, rewire. Thanks, Pep, so much.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for being here. This community means everything to me. So
thank you, Anna.
Thanks for coming together and all of us supporting each other during this time. Reach out to somebody. Remember, teach something. If you got something from this, just try to teach somebody else today, because that's how we spread love. That's how we spread light. That's how we change the world with our small little group. Love you guys.
Okay. Have an awesome day. Have an awesome weekend. Bye. See you next Friday or in all the workouts.